I thought I'd talk a little bit about filing requirements for Americans living outside the United States. If you are an American citizen or green card holder living outside the United States, then you still need to file a US tax return. You probably still need to file a federal tax return, however long you've been living outside the United States. The filing limits in the United States are relatively low, i.e. your income doesn't have to be all that high before you have to file a return. If you're resident in the United States, then your normal filing deadline would be the 15th of April each year. However, if you're living outside the United States, you get an automatic extension to the 15th of June. This can be further extended to the 15th of October, but in order to get this extension, you need to file a Form 4868 no later than the 15th of June. If you file it after that date, then you can't get the extension, and if you file late, then you may well be subject to penalties. The other thing that you need to be aware of is payment dates. Normally you'd be expected to pay by the 15th of April, and if you don't pay by then interest will accrue. However, if you're living outside the United States, you do get an extension, at least as far as penalties are concerned, to the 15th of June. That means as long as you pay by the 15th of June, you'll have interest on your tax liability from the 15th of April, but you won't suffer any penalties. However, the 15th of June date cannot be extended, so even if you manage to get an extension for the filing of your return to the 15th of October, in terms of when you need to pay the tax by, that will still be by the 15th of June, and if you pay after that date, then you're potentially leaving yourself open to penalties, much smaller penalties for late payment than for late filing, and if the amount of tax you owe is very small, then those penalties will be small, but still best to get it paid before the 15th of June and avoid the penalties and minimise the interest. The other thing that you need to be aware of as an American, particularly living outside the United States, is that there is a requirement to report on overseas financial accounts. If you have over $10,000 in total in all of your overseas financial accounts at any point during the year, then you need to make a return each year. The return itself is not that complicated. You merely have to list the accounts and the balances on them. But the penalties, or at least the theoretical penalties for non-compliance, can be really quite severe. So it's well worth filing this and making sure that you meet your obligations. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to file this return. It's called, popularly known as an FBAR. The form itself is a TDF 90-22.1, and you can get it off the IRS's website. And that needs to be submitted by the 30th of June each year for the previous year. And the important point to note here is you can't get an extension on this deadline. It's got to be done by the 30th of June, otherwise you are potentially laying yourself open to some quite stiff penalties for failure to comply with that requirement.